Go. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to All In on Real Estate. I'm your host, Aaron Goins. I started this meetup because when I was in the military, no one in my circles talked about real estate. A lot of times we talked about debt, finances, and other things like that. We didn't talk about nothing about real estate. So I wanted to start a meetup where people can understand about the nuances of real estate and start building generational wealth for them and their families. So I'm very, very excited for our guest speaker today, Ms. Peggy Beaureguard. How you doing, Peggy?
I'm doing really super well. Thank you, Aaron, very much. Appreciate the invitation.
Anytime, anytime. And Peggy is really dear to my heart. She's the founder of Nest Egg Builders, and I am part of the group. And Peggy is a great mentor for not only myself, but others who is on this call. And Peggy, so how you doing? How was your day going so far?
Oh, my day's going normal, back to back meetings all day, meeting new sponsors, meeting new people who are interested in investing, and love my team.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let me ask you the question I ask everybody. I know it's going to take a while. What is your origin story?
My origin story?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know exactly how to, I never knew where I wanted to be in my life. I always thought that I wanted to be a famous actress. I wanted to show them. And I was a really poor actress. I worked behind stage a lot. I was really good at building things and making things happen and managing. And I was really great at that. So I did that all through college. And then I did it in many other places. I costumed the Macy's Day Parade one year, traveled Europe. And I worked in the garment industry, different parts of it. I was in the costume part of it. And then I was in the industry itself for many years, for about 20 years or so. But I always loved real estate. My dad was a contractor. He built single family homes. I used to get to go over after school and sweep the places out. And I bought some properties and worked on them, fixed them. I always held everything. And then I started in this mastermind about 9 years ago. And I had been raising money for different syndicators around the United States. And somebody said, why don't you keep doing that? Why don't you make that a business? And I thought that would be great. And as I started doing this, I really found I love doing this. What's so great is I feel I found my niche. I get to work with people I really like. I get to show them ways for them to be wealthy, to take care of their kids and teach their kids how to be wealthy, teach them legacy wealth. And even though I'm working a lot of hours, I love what I do. I just love this. And I don't even need to be here. I mean, I could be retired off on a cruise, but to me, this is so important. It's so important to let people know they have a choice in life, and we could show you a way to make that choice be a lot of fun and grow and get to be who you are and have lots of money. So that's the short version.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So what was like your first deals in real estate? What did you learn from those deals?
Let's see. The first deal in real estate was buying a property that my father-in-law lived in. He owned a property in LA, 2 on a lot. And I kept telling my husband, tell your dad that when he decides to move or retire or whatever, we'd like to buy the property. And I used to kind of hound him on that. Have you talked to your dad? Have you talked to your dad? And then finally one day he said, yes, I talked to dad about it. And a couple of years later, his dad turned around and said, you can have the property. I just want to have some money out of it. We said, okay, we will give you all the money that the lender will give us. And so we did a refi on the property and gave him all the cash, and he's put the title into Joe and his brother's name. So that was the first property that was a duplex. Then we bought a triplex. And then Joe kind of felt like that was all that we needed, and I didn't feel like that was all we needed, because that wasn't, to me, that wasn't enough doors. And we had rented out the house that we had been living in and moved into another place. So we had like 6 doors altogether. And then Joe passed away, unfortunately. And the market got really good. That was like in 2008. And I did some 1031 exchanges, and I exchanged those properties into commercial real estate. And I didn't realize how great commercial real estate is. And I exchanged one of the properties into a self-storage with a 10% return. And I never looked back. I just said, this is great. You don't have to put a lot of money into something, and you're getting a really great return. So that was my first deal. And that's how I ended up out of my first deal into my first commercial deal. And now I'm in about 8 or 10 different properties right now, all commercial. I won't do anything but commercial. The money's too good there. And the reason the money's good is because you could put the same amount. Let's say you were going to buy a single family house and you're going to have to put $100,000 into it. Well, you could put that same $100,000 into a commercial property, and 10 other people could do that too. And now you've got 8 or 9 or 10% of that property, and you're getting a good return. You're getting somewhere between 8 and 20% return on that. And you're one of the partners. So you're secured by the property. You're one of the owners of the property. You're getting a return on the property. You're getting tax deductions on the property. I love real estate. I can't tell you how much I love real estate.
That's awesome right there. That's awesome right there. So can you, well, it's not here to bash, so I'm not going to ask that question about single family to commercial, but was it something early on in those deals that says, man, I'm on to something right here. I really see myself doing this, as far as like something that was like an aha moment for you?
When I went into commercial, when I was in the single family world, I didn't see aha. I can't remember which books I read that said, oh, you need to buy 10 properties and then you never need to buy another property. And they had all these different ways of refining, pulling money out and putting that as a down payment on the next property. But, that's great as a theory, but that doesn't work in reality. If you're not getting enough rent, you're not paying down the mortgage. Once you refi, you're back at a high mortgage again, you're pulling cash out of it. Are you really going to get ahead? It didn't work. Those theories didn't work. The no money down didn't work. I mean, we pulled the money out of our own pocket. I didn't know at that time that you could ask somebody else for money. So we earned the money, saved the money, and used our own money when we bought any of the properties. I'm much more educated now than I was then. That was 40 years ago or so. Did I answer your question?
Yes, ma'am, you did. You did.
Okay.
What is a favorite deal that you can really point out and says, man, that was a great deal. I wish I had more deals like that?
I don't know. They keep getting better.
I got you thinking, huh?
Let me think. Well, I did really well. Let's see. Well, I got that 10%. I thought that was a really good deal because I wasn't getting anything like that on the single families on those 5 units, 6 units. We were always in break even on that. So the first deal was a good deal. I really liked that. Oh God, I was in this great deal in San Antonio, Texas. It is, we just don't own it anymore, as a C-class commercial property. We put up our self-storage as collateral with the bank so that we didn't have to come up with the cash for the down payment. And each of us put some money into it. So we bought this commercial property that was partially vacant. So there was room to move. And and it was a good sized shopping center, and it had a bingo place in it. It had a grocery store, had the pizza place, the State Farm insurance, all the little stores. And then it had the state of Texas was in there. So it had some real draws, and then it had the little stores. And we were pulling in about 12% on that one, cash flow. But it was like in 09, we threw a bunch of money in to fix it up, painted the whole place. Are you ready? Pink, painted it pink. And it was about 1.5 miles or 3 miles outside of Kelly Field in San Antonio. And it was cash cow. It was great. And then we wanted to do a refinance, and the bank wouldn't do a refinance, so we could cash ourselves out. So I got voted out on that they wanted to sell it and I wanted to keep it. And, it's really a good thing that we sold it, or I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. But so we made 100% on that money in 5 years. So brought back 100%. That was just a great, I would have loved to keep it. And we sold it at an 8 cap when people were not offering 8 cap. So it sold like in 3 seconds. Wow. Because we were given a really good return on it. And there was still plenty of room for people to make money. There was a group that wanted to come in and buy part of the parking lot and the property that attached to it, and they wanted to put in a bank. There was room to put a drive-through kiosk where you could pick up water. There were all kinds of different things that could happen. It was a huge lot, really huge lot. So that was really great. Right now I'm in a deal that is in escrow. So it hasn't closed, so we can't say it's a great deal yet, but we're being offered 4 times what we paid for it. So we're kind of happy about that. I was very upset that he was selling because I thought it was going to be a long-term hold, and I'm getting 25% on that deal. And then when he told me it was an escrow, I'm like, oh, but I want my cash flow. And he said, well, we're getting 4 times what we paid for it. And I went, okay, maybe I could do 4 more deals out of that. Right? I'm telling you, real estate's just so fantastic. It's just great. It's so great. I'm sorry, I love it so much. Everybody talks about other places to put their money, but I just, I can't see it.
I love your enthusiasm. I love your enthusiasm, and you can tell your pure joy of doing real estate. I love it. I love that. Too many people is just about the money. The money will come, but it's all about the work you put in and the passion you have for it. I mean, if you're not doing something you don't love, eventually you're gonna get out of it. It's gonna show eventually, your work ethic or something like that. So I just love your the enjoyment you have with this.
Yeah, look, my mom taught me how to refinish furniture. My dad was a builder. I learned when my sister bought a house up in the Brentwood area, she and her husband redid the floor and tile. So I learned how to lay tile and do all that stuff around the tile and make sure the tile's not moving. You have to put all those little squares in. So I ended up redoing my bathroom in the first house we bought for ourselves. It had 8 pane windows, all wood. It was a craftsman. We redid all the floors. I redid painstakingly. I redid every one of the windows in the house. So I learned when I was learning more about real estate, some roofer guy said, hey, would you like me to teach you how to find a leak in a roof? I'm like, yeah. So he took me to this bowling alley, and we crawled up into in above the bowling alley, and he showed me how to find a leak in a house, in a property, and then how to know where to go fix it on the outside, because where's the water coming in? That's where you have to fix it, because it comes down and then it rolls on the rafters and then it drops somewhere else, maybe 8, 20, 30 feet from where the leak starts. So it was just things like that. And I worked my way through college building sets. So I knew how to, use a hammer. I knew how to use screwdrivers and equipment. So I was always ready to rehab property, and I've rehabbed every property I've moved into. except the one I'm in now, except I just painted, re-roofed, painted, and doing a few things to it. But this is the first house I have not actually ever crawled under the house or crawled through the crawl space in the attic. You got to take care of your house, and it's really helpful to know whether somebody's giving you a good price or not.
Indeed. Now, I think you said this earlier, and I want to just touch up on this. I think a lot of people don't take action, especially in real estate, because of fear. What would you tell somebody who is maybe got that itch, but are kind of indecisive about real estate? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, you just opened a huge, long conversation. Well, what do they want to do in real estate? Do they want to be active or do they want to be passive? Are they going to put their money in? Are they going to wholesale, go find properties, figure out how much it's going to cost to fix them up, and then go find somebody that wants to go fix them up? Or are they going to do the fix up themselves? So there's all that learning around that. If all they want to do is have their money working for them, then they need to find the right deals, which means that they need to learn how to, what we call, vet out a deal, underwrite. You really don't need to underwrite it. They underwrite the deal. You need to make sure that it is what it says. And I think the thing to do when you're not sure about investing and you've got that pullback, fear, is to find somebody that is successful in real estate and ask them if they will mentor you through your first investment. Where do you want to go? That's what we do. We want to find out what it is you want in your life, how you want your life to go. What are you doing to bring your kids into the world that you want to live in? And let us give you some tips on how to do that, where to go, who to talk to. Here's investments. When you come to us and you say, look, I don't know, but I want to invest, we walk you through the whole thing. We show you, we have the conversations about what kind of commercial real estate would you like to know about? Where would you be comfortable? And all of those questions are really important so that when you sit down and talk to them after you've had this discussion, you could say, okay, look, I'm going to send you a deal to look at. Then we're going to come back and we are going to discuss that deal. You need to look at the deal like you're putting your money into it, and you need to ask a lot of questions. The amazing thing is, what we do for most investors, they don't do for themselves. And I am shocked at what people will put money into without knowing whether it's a good deal or not. They don't ask for the income and expenses. They don't ask for a rent roll. And it is scary. If you don't know how the current property is running, how do you know these guys can do what they say they're going to do? How do you know they're going to be able to double it in 5 years, which I think is extremely, I don't know. I don't think that's possible to double something in 5 years unless it's construction. But if you go into a piece of property, you're not going to be able to raise the rents $500 like they say they are. What's the neighborhood doing? You're going to lose all your people when you give notice that rent's going to be raised. And here's the thing that I'm off on my tangent. In an apartment complex, if you give one person a raise of rent, that word will spread like a pandemic. And everyone will go into and start looking for other places to live because they know if one person got a raise in rent, everybody's going to get a raise in rent. So they're going to start looking, and now you've got an empty property. So you have to be really careful how you handle things like that. It's just really important. I'm happy to look at anybody's deal. I tell them all the time, look, you got a deal you want me to look at because you're not sure? Send it to me. I'll take a look at it. It's an open offer. You got to be careful where you put your money. And the first thing you need to know is who are you working with and running a background check. How many people run a background check before they give them their money? Thank you.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Great stuff, Peggy.
Oh my God. But I'm confident in what I'm doing. I know how to vet out a deal, and I know how to ask for what we need. And I'll get a deal, I'll look at it and I'll say, well, send me the income, send me the rent roll. Never hear from them again. They're out. We're not working with them, and we're not going to recommend them. If they're not going to give me that, why aren't they? You know what I'm saying? Are they putting the deal together right? Why do they think I shouldn't be getting their income and expenses and their rent roll when they're telling me, oh, this is what we're going to do? Prove it. That's me.
Totally understand it. Totally understand it. So two more questions I'm opening up for the attendees to ask. Number one is what is next for you? What's the next endeavor for you moving forward for real estate?
Next endeavor for real estate?
Yeah, for you personally in real estate.
Well, let's see. I have there's something in escrow. When that comes out, I'm probably going to look for 4 more deals to put my money in. I'm just going to keep that money working. I have a plan for the future. I'm meeting with my trust advisor next week, and I am redoing my entire trust. I am going to set up something because I would like, because I am doing what I can to build. I want it to make a good portion of money so that that money can go to work and make a difference in the community I live in. I'm in LA. We have a homeless problem that's incredibly awful. And what would resolve that? How about education? Why don't we start educating people so they know how not to ever get out on the street? Why don't we do that? So I was really looking at setting up grants for people who want to go get educated. That's my number one thing. But I'm going to keep that money working. And after I am gone, that money will continue to work so that we'll continue to educate. Actually, your friend Edmund, I think it was, told me, look, if you want to educate people, build a wing on a library. I'm like, how about we just send them to the library and tell them what books to get? I mean, I like this idea, but I'd rather have that money. I understand where he's coming from on that, but I'd really like the people to get educated. I think that will make a big difference.
Right. Okay. And then last question, what would you say to a investor or a person in real estate who maybe be struggling a little bit, maybe just had some down luck or just having some bad deals? What would you say advice to them, looking forward to the future?
I actually would like to have a conversation with them to do a debrief. Like, what did they do? What didn't go right? Where do they see they misstepped? How could they correct that? And then the most important is, how can we get you to move forward? Don't quit. Let's figure it out. Don't quit. You made a couple mistakes. People do. My advice to people who are going into this business is I hear people say all the time, oh, I'll make some mistakes on the way. I'm like, why? There's so many people out there that are successful in real estate. Why do you have to make a mistake? Go ask them to walk through a deal with you. They don't have to be on the property or any of that. You can just find somebody that will look at the paperwork you have, look at whatever it is, and advise you as to whether this might be a good deal or not. Always get help. There's plenty of people out there that want to help. Successful people want to be asked because they want to support success, and they will. I mean, you go to some of the meetings I go to, don't you see those people as very generous with their time? They're really happy to You hear them say that all the time. Look, if you never need anything, just give me a holler. I'm happy to do that. Here's my email. You hear people say that all the time, and yet people don't ask.
Mhm.
So that's what I would tell somebody that had a few glitches, shall we say. We all do. We all do. I didn't know. Nobody taught me about money. I had to learn everything on my own. I started my first business when I was 11 years old, delivering TV guides, and it was my job to build that business, and I did not do a good job. I didn't really like riding my bike in the heat in Redlands, where I grew up. But I started that business, and then I went from business to business to business as a kid, always trying to figure out one more thing I could do to make some money. My parents would give me a dime a week for allowance. Now, you know, how far can a dime go? You could buy some bubble gum. So I always, I started making my own clothes. My parents didn't buy my clothing for me. I had to earn the money to make my own clothes. So I sewed. That's how I managed to get through college, is using the talent I had. So you do what you have to do to get to learn. So I learned that if I wanted to earn something, I had to make it happen. And I've never asked anybody to do anything I wouldn't do myself. I ran a retail store for years. I was with a company called Susie's Casuals, and I would keep getting promoted and do openings for them. And I made sure that I did absolutely everything before I ever asked one of the employees to do something, if that makes sense. So getting out there and educating yourself and getting down on the floor and scrubbing it. I always think of Goldie Hawn in that movie where she's Private Benjamin, where she's there with a toothbrush scrubbing the floor. You know, you do what you have to do to make it happen. And is some of it fun? Yeah, some of it's a blast. Is some of it not fun? Yeah. You know, I've never had a job where everything was great or everything was horrible. You just do what you need to do. Don't stop, go forward. Find the people that will support you. Like, have you had to change your friends because people tell you, oh, you can't do that, or that's too good to be true? I'm sorry, I dislike hearing that's too good to be true. How do you know that's too good to be true? Just because you can't do it doesn't mean somebody else can do it. So find out what makes it too good to be true, or here's better. Why don't you find out why it is true? And then move into that realm.
Great stuff. Great stuff. So,
Is it?
great. Well, thank you again, Peggy. If you have any questions for Peggy, please ask. Please open your mic or raise your hand and please ask. I know your first question was, what is your specialty in real estate?
My specialty
Yes.
is we talk to people like you who have money. You would like that money working in commercial real estate, and we show you how to make it grow so that you could take $100,000 and in 15 years turn it into about $3 million, for instance. And in real estate, in commercial real estate, I only like commercial real estate. I don't particularly like multifamily right now because multifamily is not giving good returns. The other reason I really don't like multifamily is the expenses of management are so high. It makes it very difficult to make a profit. Whereas your management in other areas like self-storage, office, retail, management's so little. There's so little management, maybe 5%, but on multifamily, it's like 35%. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Uh,
Who asked that?
First phone asked that question. You can unmute if you want to. Zena asked, what specifically does syndication mean?
Oh, my apologies. A syndicator is somebody who raises funds so they could close their deal. It's very simple. If you were to buy a piece of property, but you needed money to close and you asked me to invest with you, that makes you a syndicator. Very simple. People that are asking for money partner with them. Does that explain it to you, Sinya?
Who would be the clients?
The clients?
I guess you're talking about LP.
I'm asking if there's a group of people that need money raised, and after they receive the money or the funds, and they need to talk to a general contractor or an architect or an interior designer or any other or any outside company who represents that money that's been raised. Like, is it a group that's an official client, or do they designate one person, or how does that work?
So it all depends on how you put it together. There's something called a GP, which is general partner. And that general partner is usually a team. It's usually 2 or 3, sometimes 4, sometimes even more people. And they're the ones that have the expertise they already have the expertise on who to talk to, how to qualify for a loan, what the property needs. And they then will, before they even close, they will go find the money, and they will also at the same time be talking to the city as to what they need. They'll be talking to an architect. They have to know how much money to raise. So if they're going to build something, they need to know how much money they need to build that store, shall we say. So they want to build a store. They need to know how much the land cost, how much the entitlements cost, which are going to the city with your architect outline and engineering and all of that, how much all that costs, how much the architect costs, how much it's going to cost to build. They need to do a line by line. It's called a line by line breakdown. They need to know what every nail, every screw, every hammer, everything they need to do that. They need to know to the penny what that cost. Then they go out and they ask for money. After they know all their expenses, after they know that whatever it's going to cost, that they can make a profit on it. They have to know that before they ask for any money, because they have to show the investor, the person like me who would invest, they have to show me and prove to me why I could invest with them and how I'm going to make money with them.
Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. And an architect could become a GP. So a general partner are usually the people, besides they are also the management company or oversee a management company, raising the capital. They also are the ones that are hiring everybody and approving everybody. They have to do special paperwork also, depending on what it is. And they might have to work with the securities, depending on what it is. So it could be very complicated, and it could be very simple.
Okay, so the next question is, person asks, I'm scared about real estate. I am looking for ways to lessen my fears. How does investing in real estate help me with taxes? It is said in your description that you know how to save on taxes.
Yes. Well, okay. So you invest in, let's just say you invest in we'll just say a multifamily, because everybody understands pretty much what that is. What happens when they close is they do a special kind of, why has that left my brain? They do a analysis for depreciation. And they look at the property, which normally gets a 27.5-year depreciation. But the parking lot that has to be redone every so many years. So that has a different depreciation schedule. If they have solar on it, that has a different depreciation schedule. There's air conditioners, they have a different depreciation schedule. So everything, the washer and dryer in the laundry room have a different depreciation schedule. Everything, they look at everything. They look at doors, they look at everything and how often it's going to depreciate. Like the windows might have to be replaced more often than other parts. So they go through and they figure out, okay, we can depreciate this over 7 years, this is 5 years, this is 10 years, this is 15 years. And then all that depreciation gets passed through to the partners and it offsets the income you're receiving. So my favorite phone call is when the 1099s come out, or the K1s come out in March, and they tell me it's negative. And I'm like, yeah, that's good. He said, but I got all that cash flow. Yes, but you just got that negative figure and it just wrote off all that cash flow you got. So it gets put on a special schedule on your return. Your CPA will handle that for you. And you ought to have a CPA, and you ought to be talking to your CPA before you invest in anything. And then that will offset your income. So if you have a regular job and you're a W-2 person, now you've got the schedule, you're a passive investor, and that K1 will offset part of your income you're getting. The more properties you invest in, the more K1s you get, the more write-offs you get. And someday you might not pay taxes at all. Jordan.
Hey, thanks. For that cost segregation
Yes, cost segregation. Thank you.
that you were talking about, when you accelerate all those losses, well, I'm sorry, I'm on two different devices.
No. Oh, yeah, you do. You accelerate them and then you go invest in another piece of property.
So with those losses, whenever you do your 1031s, do you ever have any issues with the gains on that 1031?
Not on the gains, but on the depreciation. So if you're going to do a 1031, so you could do a 1031 with yourself, you could do a 1031 passively too, meaning you can come out of being active and go into passive. Your 1031, you must spend $1 more than what you're selling for. And if you have a loan, you have to have at least $1 more in loans on the property. So if you're selling a property for 100,000 and you bought it for 50, you've got to buy a property for $101,000. And if you have a $50,000 loan on it, you've got to have at least a $50,001 loan on it. Never works out that way, but that's what the rules are. So we could walk you through that and show you what you need to do that. But you've got to buy a property and you don't have to invest in one property either. You know, you could have $1 million coming in. You can decide you want to put that in 3 or 4 different properties. You just have to make sure that that number meets what the rules are for 1031. Does that answer your question at all, Jordan?
It actually does. So yeah, I definitely want to dig into that a bit more, but definitely helpful.
Yeah, well, give me a call or set up an appointment with me.
Okay, we'll do.
I
Yeah.
should put my info in here. We also have a show on Tuesdays. You're welcome to come to it. It's Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, and it's the nesteggbuildershow.com. And maybe Cliff could put something in here. Nika can't, she's driving. I'll look it up and put it in.
Got it.
Yeah, no, it's not. Look, 1031s are complicated. It sounds really simple. Oh, you like for like, real estate for real estate. I'm going to sell this property. I'm going to exchange it to another property. That makes it sound really simple. It's not that simple. I have the 362-page book on 1031 exchanging. It's not simple. But you have to follow the rules, and your CPA should understand. You should have a CPA that has real estate, so that when they go to do that, they are advising you properly. And should you be doing a 1031, and should you be going into we have people that actually don't want to go into a loan. They'd rather pay the taxes than go into another property with a loan on it. So they're choosing to pay taxes on part of their 1031. So they still get to put their capital into it, but they're going to pay on what's called boot, which is the relief they're getting. They're not going to get any cash in their pocket. They're just going to get a relief of the loan. So there's a lot of ways to do a 1031, and that just makes it even more complicated.
And do you find more of a overall, I guess, overall cash benefit from the 1031 or from the cost segregation? I know it's maybe a little bit difficult to quantify on each of the different properties, but if you were to ever have to choose one over the other, my reason being just as focusing on finding a cost segregation company, or should I be finding a better CPA that can walk me through a 1031 if I'm getting out of properties versus finding a cost segregation engineering firm to do cost segregation on the properties that I have now?
I think you're talking about two different things. They're not related. Your CPA does not know about doing, your CPA does not do cost segregation. You have to
Correct.
hire a cost segregation firm. All your CPA is going to do is use that against your income and do your depreciation. But if
Right.
you're in a partnership with other people, their CPA will do that.
Right. If I'm looking to investigate and there's limited resources, should I pursue the cost segregation engineering firm, or should I just be looking for a better CPA that can handle my 1031?
Your CPA is not going to handle your 1031. If you do
Or the 1031 exchange company, I'm sorry.
yeah, you accommodator, you get an accommodator, or you do a simultaneous closing. You always go find your property that you want to exchange into before you ever put your property on the market that you're going to leave. So the tip one is never close on your property till you've already identified a property to go into, because it could take you years to find that property. And that's the biggest mistake that 1031 people make. They close on a deal and then they go look for a property, and you only have 45 days to find one. So I really don't, I can't answer your question, Jordan, because you're talking about two or three different things. When you buy a property, particularly a commercial property, always get a cost segregation on it. It's worth the money. I don't know how much it costs, but I know it's not cheap, but it's worth the money because of all the deductions you get over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go to the CPA, they're just going to say, how much did you pay for it? What is the value of the land? And they subtract the land from the building, and then they do a 27.5-year deduction. That's depreciation. That's not what you want. You want to be able to deduct all those other things, because guess what? In 7 years, you're going to have to replace that air conditioner. And now you're going to start that depreciation schedule over again. So what you need to do is you need to budget. When you're getting ready to do something, finding it, budget everything in. Know what a cost segregation costs. There's lots of companies out there. They're all over. I don't know where you are, but there are lots of them. Just start Google cost segregation. I bet you find all kinds of people, and then find out who's using them. Get recommendations. Don't just use any company. Make sure you get 2 or 3 referrals. Anytime you talk to somebody, just say, could you give me a couple people that you've worked with before? I want to find out, like that. It's important to do that.
We had a lady that come and spoke on our show about cost segregation. We can give them that lady's number.
Yeah, you could do that.
Sarah Waterman. That was her name.
Sarah Waterman. Okay. I don't know. Where are you, Jordan?
I'm in Maryland.
Oh, okay. Well, she's here in California, I think. But she might know somebody out there, and some of them travel. I don't have her phone number here, but I could get it for you.
Yeah, she's in Texas, I think.
Oh, she's in Texas. Okay.
But yeah, they may go all over. They might go all over. I think she was in Texas, but actually the company was in California. So that's why it's confusing.
Oh, yeah, and I have a friend, John, who used to do it, but he's retired, so he's not doing that anymore. But there's plenty of cost segregation, and I'll tell you who knows the really good ones are all these guys that have already closed on their properties because they hire them. They don't not do a cost segregation. What kind of property are you looking at, Jordan?
So right now I'm in single family, and have been looking to get more so into commercial, but even on the single family, I mean, I've got a block of 10 properties that I feel like is just as good as a commercial property or multifamily property. So doing a cost seg on that is kind of what we've been looking into doing.
Okay.
But if an opportunity presents itself to do a 1031, that was kind of what I'm weighing out, is whether or not I should go on the cost seg and, see if we can get any of the benefits now, while we're looking for the property, or 1031 into, I've got an opportunity for a commercial project that another partner is looking to get into.
So now that you've explained that, to me, it's not worth you going into a property. Don't do a cost seg, don't do a cost seg right before you sell. That's not worth the money. It's
Gotcha.
just not worth the money. If you had just bought it and you've got those 10 properties, yeah, it's worth doing. But if what you're going to do is let it go within the next year, it costs a lot of money to do it. It might not be worth it.
Noted.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes. And Yona Weiss is never a good person to talk about cost segregation. Okay. I guess the last one. I'm scared. Okay. Cost segregation. Is depreciation the only way to save on real estate taxes?
Depreciation?
Yes. Is that the only way?
No, you have all the expenses. So if you're like Jordan, Jordan's got 10 properties. So he has expenses. He's got his property taxes he pays, the mortgage interest, the liability insurance. If he's got gardeners, he writes that off. If he pays for the water, that's a write-off. The trash, all of that, that's a write-off. You've got maintenance. All the expenses are write-offs. So you have depreciation and you have the write-offs. That's why property's so good. And, probably shouldn't tell you this, but there's a lot of people that own like single families, and then they fix up their own houses and they write that off on their taxes also. It's not legal, but people just squeeze it into their other property expenses. And if it's not too terrible, I guess the IRS doesn't know. But that's one of the reasons people own it, so they can get their own place fixed up.
How many more write-offs, or I guess additional benefits on top of single family are there in the commercial space? Because you said it was so much better. And I mean, I know it's a lot more zeros,
Yeah.
but what about, is there anything additional? Is everything translates except that it's generally a better, more reliable cash flow than like single family and multifamily?
Yeah, more like that, right?
Okay.
You're right. You bought $1 million property instead of a 500. Usually you're buying more like a 10 million or $20 million property. So yes, there's a lot more zeros. So there's a lot more write-offs. And if you're the GP, you're usually getting 20-25%. So you're writing off 20 or 25%. Plus you're also putting in some money as an A-class partner. So you get that write-off also. Plus you get extra income when you're the GP because you get your manager asset. You get an asset fee because you have to oversee the manager normally, right? Because you hire a manager, you're not going to manage a property. Let's say I don't know what you said, you live in Maryland and maybe you live up in the DC area and you've got something down in Fredericksburg. You don't want to be driving down there all the time. So you hire a manager. Plus, if you're not the best manager and you're not living right there, you should have a really good manager working for you. They're worth the money. And if you're in a commercial property like a office, you want a good office manager, because you want that manager to be able to bring in, if they get notice that somebody's leaving, you want them scuttling to go find a new tenant to come in. You need to get the right people in place, get the right people on the bus and get the wrong people off the bus.
And how do you develop that if you're not in that space? I'm moving into the commercial space. Is it only from the groups and others that are in the space? Or is there anything out, like do your own personal due diligence to start developing these contacts?
Yeah, well, go to meetings to meet people. Right? Where are you going to find investors? How about at real estate meetings? There's always people with money in the room, always looking for a place to put their money. They usually sit in the back of the room. Has been my experience.
I
You-
would say, I was going to make a comment about that.
Yeah.
I would say that you find somebody, if you're going into a completely different asset class that you don't know very well, then, but you can bring some money or maybe the deal, then you find a co-GP that is already very, seasoned and successful in that particular asset class. You co-GP with them, you give them 10%, you give them profit. Like you just say, hey, I want you to be my mentor. I've got the deal. I'm bringing the money. I'll do all the work, but I need you to guide me through, and you co-GP, offer them something to be your co-GP.
Absolutely. Well, I was going to get to that, but yes.
Sorry.
No, it's perfectly all right. I'm glad that you chime in. Always chime right in. And Nick
And-
is on our team.
And so with co-GPing on that, do you feel like that is always the safety rails? Like in your whole career, have you made mistakes? Even if
heck
you
yeah.
were like, what were the two biggest mistakes? And do you feel like partners or GPs would have been able to help you prevent that?
I don't know if I made two. Actually,
The one was good enough.
hey, one hurt really bad because I lost $500,000.
Ooh.
So what I did was I left my expertise. I've always had a dream of taking a building and making it into a more beautiful building. And I didn't know enough at that time to bring in, and I thought I was bringing in the right people to work with me. And I did not bring in the right people to work with me. And I ended up losing that property and giving it back to the city, which is who we were buying it from. And I spent a lot of money, $100,000 on architects to redo this beautiful, beautiful building downtown. And I lost it. I lost it all. I lost what I paid the architect. I lost the money that I paid for the building. I lost everything. That was a big mistake. And the mistake I made was leaving my core without having the right people in place, which is what Nika just said. Find a co-GP to come in with you that's an expert, because I'll tell you what, people like our company, if that's your first deal, we're not going to work with you because you're too big of a risk. But you bring in somebody that's an expert in that field and has a name, and you're giving them part of the deal for that, because he's going to mentor you through and make sure you're doing it right. People will bring their money in because of that person. And that makes a difference, because everybody's going to turn to that person if something goes wrong. And then once you've done one deal, you just go off and do your next one. And then you do your next one. And you just keep moving forward.
And a lot of times too, another thing that people forget, because I talk to people all the time that are like, yeah, I'm going to get into multifamily. And they don't realize when you jump to that higher tier to get qualified for the bank loan, even of itself, you got to have liquidity and net worth. And not everybody, when they're making a big jump like that to the next tier up, are going to have that. So you have to bring somebody in. I mean, even if that's it, that you bring in that's a different person. That's a credit partner. There's a real term for that, like KPI. But yeah, and you'll see it's like, I started noticing that when I first started looking at PPMs, I was like, who's this other person that nobody talks about, but that's written on the PPM that talks about being the financial person. They were the credit partners, and they get a percentage of the deal just for being the person that is on the loan or given their net worth, or that they have liquidity of $1 million in the bank that you don't have.
And on those PPMs, typically, how much do you see allocated for those silent or credit partners, essentially guaranteeing the deal and providing that liquidity?
I mean, that's a negotiation. So I don't know. It depends on what they need, how big the deal is. I mean, I would think at least 10%, but I don't know that for sure. And that's all subject to negotiation.
Right.
It is. And usually GPs take about 30% of the deals. There are some that take 50%, but they're experts and they have a good track record. You'd have to build up to that. And there's a lot of people that won't invest with GPs that take 50% of the deal. So I don't know how many partners you have, but if you're doing a nice enough deal, it doesn't really matter, 30%, and you can share that also. But what Nika's telling you, that's really good advice. Really, it is. And you've got these 10 properties or however many you've got that would work at a 1031 exchange. You just have to figure out how to do that, because if people come in and want to buy each house separately, you got to make sure that you do one closing all at the same time so you can do that exchange. And you're in Maryland, there's tons and tons and tons of stuff where you are.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I'm looking to, transfer into the commercial space, is because I keep coming by a lot of deals, and I've been practicing underwriting. They look like they pencil pretty well.
Mhm.
My area, I've been in single family for 20 years. So some of it is a bit of hesitation. And like you said, trying to make sure that I'm sticking in my area of expertise, and then also building, my Rolodex. That's, obviously why I'm on these calls and other, multifamily and commercial calls, just building my contacts and building my networks up, so that when I do make that jump, I've got some support.
Yeah, you'll have support and you know how to find those people, right? You can also go to the city and see who's pulling permits to do things in the area you're looking for, and then you could go knock on their door and see if they'll work with you. You want somebody that's active.
Accessibility has probably been the one. So you always can get the LLCs, and then you'll either get property managers or you get the project manager. But the actual GP who's on that project and heading the project, typically there are a few gatekeepers in the way, to really make that connection. That's kind of the only thing that I've been finding.
That's interesting. Successful people usually don't have gatekeep. Well, some of them have gatekeepers. Do you tell them what you're looking for?
If I get to talk to the project manager, I usually do look for the owner or the GP, and occasionally I can get a name. Go for LinkedIn is usually my first go-to, or a phone number. Phone numbers have not been successful, and then I have found a couple guys on LinkedIn, but they are relatively busy.
So you should have the project manager do the introduction, not have him give you a phone number. The way you get in the door is the project manager says, I'd like to introduce you to Jordan. Please have a conversation with him. He wants to talk to you about a GP position on another property. That's how you get that phone call made.
Gotcha.
Do that by email, and now you've got a warm introduction. His project manager.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like that. So keep in touch.
Okay. So I know you run out of time, Peggy.
Yeah, we did.
So yeah, so I just want to say thank you. Thank you very much for coming and lending us your expertise. If you want to find Peggy, you can email her. Her email is in the chat. Peggy@nessabuilders.com. If you want to find her, she has a calendar, and then also, like she said before, Nessa Builders is every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Pacific. So if you guys want to catch her and her on the meetup, please do. This will be up on YouTube tonight. So if you want to see the replay of this meetup right here. So like I said, Peggy, I know you had to go, but I want to say thank you very much. You have any last words you want to say to the people before you go?
Well, I want to thank you very much. This was very fun. And Jordan, what you brought up might be a really good discussion on our show. Really, I think that what you brought up, this would be really great because people want to learn. And what you brought up is, how do we learn? If you're interested, let's set up a time and see if we could get you on the show, or talk to Aaron. He could get you on the show.
Most definitely. Yeah, we'll definitely be connecting, and I'll touch base with you on LinkedIn and get your info from Aaron.
Okay, Taylor, lovely speaking to you. Lovely to see all of you. Thank you very much for attending and asking questions. That's always the fun part for me. I'm available for anybody who needs, whatever, a little kick in the butt, mostly. Thank you very much, Aaron.
All right, thank you, Peggy. And to everybody, thank you very much for coming. We can continue to have the conversation, but I'm gonna stop the recording, and I just want to say God bless everybody and take care. Thank you.